Hi, I'm Robert Shalide, Chief of Police for Shelby Township, and welcome to Straight Talk. This week we're going to be talking about identity theft and fraud. This is a rampant problem going on in the community. We brought in our resident expert, Detective Charles Johnson. Charles, welcome to the program.
Hi, Chief.
Thank you for coming on. And
Thanks
then we have our fleet coordinator, Ron Mix, and he's got a special insight as he's been a victim of identity theft recently. We're going to have him talk to you about it, and I'm very excited about this. Charles, every day we're reading reports about people getting ripped off. There's different kinds of scams. I'm going to walk through. One of them that I know about is the IRS scam that's going on right now,
Sure.
where people are getting phone calls from people. You want to start with that one first?
Yeah, it's another one of those. They can all kind of be classified under a large category of just trying to basically like a scare tactic scam. Sometimes it's relative in distress, IRS. Sometimes it's we have utility fraud scams. They run the gamut of the source they claim to be, but pretty much the main thing is they'll try and get you to front them some kind of money through some sort of prepaid green dot, such as, or some kind of even iTunes, and it's like you and I know that the IRS is not going to accept iTunes as a form of payment, an iTunes card or something like that. But somebody who's maybe unfamiliar, new to paying taxes, or just maybe unfamiliar with what exactly any of these things really are, specifically maybe somebody in our elderly communities, somebody would fall for this kind of scam, and unfortunately a lot of times what happens is, they may throw 70 hooks out there in our community, and unfortunately we get 2 or 3 that bite, and now they're out some significant money a lot of times.
It's not all elderly people all the time.
No.
I hear every once in a while we have someone in their 20s and 30s and 40s getting ripped off. The bottom line is the IRS, if they're coming after you, you're not going to have to submit a payment within 24 hours or 48 hours.
Right.
That's not going to happen. And that's one of the demands on this. We need you to pay immediately or you're going to have an arrest warrant issued. The IRS doesn't talk like that. So, we need everyone to be aware that if the IRS is going to contact you, you're going to get a registered letter for the most part from the IRS, or they're going to knock on the door with identification, correct?
Sure, yeah. Somebody's going to want to meet with you. They're going to ask you to come down to either an office or something like that. They're going to send you letters on official letterhead and things like that. They're not going to contact you with a cold call and say, this is Agent so-and-so at the IRS. We know you're $5,000 behind in taxes. If you send us $500 in prepaid Visa cards, we can consider it, a down payment, and we won't send a warrant out for your arrest, that sort of thing. It's just, yeah, exactly. Everything is going to be like you would expect from a government agency. You're going to get a letter in advance if you have some kind of issues. And a lot of people that have tax issues know that, and they know in advance. It's not something that's going to sneak up on you. And
Of course.
We all pay our taxes every year, or, and we know what's going on to some extent. So, yeah, exactly. Everything's going to be upfront and above board, and it's going to look like it is legit, because it will be.
The other one that I know about, you get an email from a relative, grandson or something, and says, I'm down overseas, I'm in Jamaica or somewhere in the Caribbean, and then I've been beat up, I've been arrested, I don't have any money on me, whatever, and you need to wire X amount of money down to me right now.
Sure.
I don't have my phone, it's not available to call me, please help me. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, like I say, those are another one of those fears kind of scams. It's a relative in distress, and yeah, it's exactly like you say. It's I've been arrested, I've been detained, I need so much money, and you have to wire it to this attorney, and they'll tell you to wire it somewhere else, which, and it's, you and I know, no police department anywhere is going to ask for prepayment with a prepaid card or a MoneyGram wire transfer or something like that. The best bet is to just, if that person is calling you, call the person that it claims to be, because more often than not, after everything is said and done, whether it's hours or days, they end up contacting the grandson or the nephew or whatever, and they say, no, I'm up here at college. Right. Nothing like that.
They hack into their email.
Sure.
So that's how their mode to this is they hack into the person's email, so it looks like you're getting an email from the actual relative.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, unless you actually talk to somebody that you know this is your specific relative, don't dare send them any money. Are you
Absolutely. That's just a general rule of thumb. If you don't know where you're sending money, or you don't know who you're sending money to, they have big signs at these places where you can wire money. Warning you not to send to anybody you don't know, whether it's a sales scam, whether it's one of these relative in distress. Just don't do it, because it's almost always a scam.
One of the big things I want to relate to our elderly residents also is about answering the phone. At my house, we don't answer the home phone. We don't use it for anything, but it rings incessantly. and it's all these different telemarketers and everything. And I would go as far as tell our residents, don't answer the phone unless you know who's on the other end of the line. Are you in agreement with that or
Yeah,
no?
because absolutely, because we've had complaints come across our desk back in the detective bureau where the person has been contacted and their caller ID says Shelby Township Police or Sterling Heights Police. Because there's software out there dialing through the internet and things like that. There are services that they can use to spoof those numbers.
Okay.
So, I mean, and that's oftentimes where that seed of doubt as far as, would a police department ask for prepayment or something like that, often kind of gets buried. Because, well, the phone, my caller ID says it is coming from a police department.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. It's
just
a lot of things originate that way for sure.
Yeah, just don't answer the phone unless you know who it is.
Right.
Listen to the voicemail message. If you have to return a call, go ahead. Now, Mr. Mix, 15-year veteran, fleet coordinator. You're in charge of our 50 vehicles at the police department. You do a tremendous job for us. And unfortunately for you, you're on our program because you were ripped off.
That's right.
And just recently, and I know Charles helped you with the case, it was an identity theft. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened and how you had to deal with it?
Sure. Well, actually, over the last year and a half, I've been a victim of identity theft 3 different times. First, my email, then my credit cards, and then most recently, my social security number was stolen and used to make a false unemployment claim with the township on my behalf. So obviously, now that my social security number is floating out there in the hands of criminals, it takes a lot of steps to try to protect myself from them using it for any purposes like taking out a loan or whatever they can use it for. So obviously, one of my first steps was going to Detective Johnson and getting the information I needed to do and taking all the steps that I needed to take to protect myself in the future.
Okay. I mean, you spent hours on this, right? I don't remember when the email got hacked, you were like beside yourself because you were not getting a lot of cooperation from the server, correct?
Right.
Can you give us a little bit more detail about that?
Well, yeah, I can definitely say one of the greatest websites out there, there's all kinds of things on the internet to help you, is identitytheft.gov. I would tell anybody, get on that website, and what that does is they ask you specifically what kind of identity theft have you experienced, and then it creates a checklist of what you need to do. And of course, I kind of had an in, again, with Detective Johnson. He said immediately check your credit reports, which I did, with all 3 credit agencies, and put a 60-day fraud report on there. Then I went and took it a step further and put a 7-year fraud report. Now that requires a police report, so make a police report. Some people say you don't have to, but I would advise anybody to make a police report because that will help you with the credit agencies. And then I put a freeze on my credit report as well, so nobody can take credit of any kind out in my name.
Okay, very good. Charles, back when I was working cases several years ago, I went to a few different seminars, and one of the things that I heard someone say before is not to use your debit card. Don't use it. Okay, use credit cards instead. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's?
I'm in agreement with you. Generally, when I use my card, I always run it as credit. It's just one more. There is equipment out there, skimmers and the like, a lot of times too, that often look exactly like regular point-of-sale equipment. The little keypad that you use, swipe your card and type in your debit card. And sometimes those can be replaced at, unbeknownst to the chain retailers, in their very own terminals, in the very own stores, so that you don't even know. So when you're typing in your debit card, all it takes is for somebody with a Bluetooth receiver to come up and pull that information off for the last 1,000 people that have used that specific terminal. So I always run mine as credit.
Okay. Residents, please pay attention to that. Try to use the credit portion of your card and not the debit portion. Another thing I've been told, and I'd like you to verify this or tell if it's false, is to be very careful who you write checks to. Try to avoid writing checks unless you know it's a very reputable company. Are you in agreement with that as far as the check kiting goes and stuff? Or
Yeah, for sure. You definitely want to be careful in any kind of transaction where you're sending money or sending basically your account information through the mail. You want to make sure that it's going to get there safely. Worst case, don't throw it in your mailbox and throw the flag out, because that's basically just an invitation to say, hey, there's something in here that's going out. And honestly, most of our outgoing mail is checks, bill payments and things like that. And all it takes is for somebody to grab that, account and routing number off that check and create a new check that they can then go and, send somebody into a bank branch and cash, things like that. So yeah, it's definitely, with checks, it's very, it's kind of old technology, but it's still around because it still works. These guys that create these checks and,
Yes.
and cash them.
Okay. What about counterfeit money? How much counterfeit money is out there for us to worry about? Should we be concerned? I know we get a lot of reports at the station. A lot of it's just like little nickel dime stuff. I shouldn't say
Yeah.
nickel dime, but
Yeah.
10s, 20s, etc.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
We've had a few 50s and 100s come across, but some of the stuff is so obvious. I know we've had some that just have a little thing on there right at the bottom that say for motion picture use only, and that's been going around the whole country.
Okay.
That's not uncommon. It's not a huge thing. Most businesses that accept a high amount of cash, if they get a bill over $20 or $50, they'll automatically hit it with that marker, and and those are usually the reports we get is they hit it with the marker after the fact, or something doesn't feel right when they're cashing out at the end of the day, and they've got to go back through and figure out where it came from.
Most important thing that our residents have to worry about is protecting their accounts and their identity theft, correct?
Sure.
You want to talk a little bit generally about identity theft, some of the different techniques people can use to try to prevent it from occurring?
Sure. The most important thing is just be very vigilant of your credit. The Michigan Attorney General has one website that you can go to, get a free credit report annually. And it's just a good thing just to check. It doesn't ding your credit that, as far as if you're only doing it, if you're doing it weekly and things like that, those inquiries can show up and can maybe adversely affect your credit. But, check it yearly, make sure that nothing shows up. And then, of course, if something does show up, get in front of it quick, because it's a lot easier, as Ron will find out, that to put a stop to it rather than go back and clean it up.
Okay.
As far as credit and things like that, it's so much easier to just prevent and be vigilant rather than come back and clean up later. Because if you've got $20,000 or $30,000 worth of debt out there that you're trying to say that you're not responsible for, it could be a nightmare. Especially if, in some cases, these perpetrators, what they'll do is they'll actually make small payments to, like, say, a credit card to keep the minimum balance, or to keep the minimum payment to keep the balance open longer, so they can run up a larger debt. And then once they get to a certain point, they don't feel like paying it anymore. Now you're up, and now you have to argue with the credit company, well, if this was indeed fraud, why is somebody making a payment? So, like I say, after that long and after years go by and you don't notice it, it becomes very difficult to remove your liability for that debt.
Understood.
In that situation.
Ron, I have a question for you. When your Social Security number was compromised, did you ask them or consider asking for a new Social Security number? Is that an option for Social Security Administration, or no, none whatsoever? Are you aware of
It
that?
is an option, but from what I understand, you have to be able to prove that it's adversely affected you in a major way. In my situation, I got ahead of it quickly, took the advice of our detectives, and there's no other fraud on my credit report. So you're kind of too far down the line when you get to that point. You got to really have a lot of debt and things on your credit report that don't belong to you before you can actually apply for a new Social Security number.
Okay. Charles, just let me go back to you. I have a friend of mine who's actually ripped off out of his attorney firm, and his equipment and gear, his computers were frozen. Frozen by somebody off-site, and they basically had to pay a ransom to get their stuff back and working again, okay? Mm-hmm. And it was a peanuts, it was like $3,500, and what they didn't know is this guy would have probably paid, thousands and thousands to get his stuff back. Everything was frozen. How do they do this? Okay, what can be done to prevent it? And have we had it happen here in Shelby Township?
Yeah, what you're talking about is ransomware, and I've had one report recently where that happened, and the victim actually gave me some great advice, and they said what she did is, because she has great IT people, she went in and she had them actually locate the malware, which is basically, it's just an attachment that's something that comes in through an email or a download or something along those lines, and it's attached to something. It's either by itself or attached to something, and then when you power off your computer or when it goes idle or just in the background process, it goes through and starts running an encryption protocol, which basically it's like a mathematical, it's kind of like an algebraic equation to encrypt your data. So what happens is, without that key, that encryption key to kind of work backwards through that algebraic formula, you can't get at your data. But what she told me was that her IT department found the malware, isolated it, removed it, deleted it from her system, and then she found a company that's based out of Florida that actually works on these ransomwares and working backwards through these algorithms. And a lot of times they have great success, except for when it's removed, because they can't work backwards through it anymore because it's now gone from our system.
I see.
So you actually have to, a lot of times what happens is they'll demand payment through Bitcoin or something like that, because they're normally offshore, overseas and things like that. So they're working with Bitcoin because it's international. It's kind of like casino chips of the internet, basically. So her advice was, tell somebody, hey, if it's on there, contact one of these companies that will actually de-encrypt it. They can actually work through the actual malware to find the encryption code to then go through, and it's oftentimes a lot cheaper than actually paying the ransom.
And how would they find that company?
You can just, this one's out of Florida. You can just do a basic Google search for them and locate them. Say, because it's, they'll give you some kind of an idea of how. Oftentimes, people in that industry often kind of build up how successful they are. But you can read reviews and things like that, and there are a lot of companies out there with a lot of success in actually breaking those encryption codes.
Okay. One of the things I do personally, which I've spoken in groups before, and I've told people, and they look at me like I don't know how they're taking this, is that on my I use my American Express card for everything I can, and I have an alert set up that if my American Express card is used without me present, I get a text and an email immediately. So every once in a while, I'll get it. I'll look at it, it's like, what is this? And it'll be a recurring bill that I have or whatever, but my card can't be used without being notified. I mean, what great protection is that? Sure. So American Express has done a tremendous job. Now, all my credit cards don't have that luxury. The different major banks, not everybody's caught up to speed. I think you can get an American Express card for like $35 a year. They even have free cards, don't they, nowadays? I'm pretty sure they have a free card. But bottom line is I would recommend that to our residents also, have an American Express card as your credit card. How do you feel about that, Charles?
Yeah, that's a great service. A lot of banks now, the big thing is when you apply for a credit card, you have the opportunity a lot of times to opt in or opt out of fraud protection stuff like that. Like you say, and it's always a safety net to just go ahead and opt into that. I mean, it's not like they're going to be collecting and selling data, to telemarketers and things like that. They just want to basically, because when you report some kind of fraud, a lot of times it's too far gone. The funds are too far gone. They've already paid somebody. So now that credit card company, the bank that it's issued through, is now out those funds. So they're offering that as kind of a self-protection. So it protects you from having to deal with the aftermath, and it protects them from having to pay, having to be victimized by $2,000 going to someplace in Florida when you were up here in Michigan.
Charles, how often do you sign into your accounts and check their status?
Daily.
Okay, this is coming from a fraud detective. Daily. Mr. Mix, how often do you sign in your accounts and check their status?
Rarely.
Okay, my answer is also daily. I check in all my accounts on every day. I sign in just for 2 seconds, look, make sure there's nothing on there that's suspicious, or none of my money's been zapped out of there. Charles, do you think that's good advice for our residents?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, every single day, sign in your account. It takes a minute or two. And anything further on that?
No, yeah, it just goes right back to the more you pay attention, the less something can sneak by and become a huge mess later on.
Correct. So the same guy that had his computers frozen by the ransomware, I think you called it, he was involved in this business deal. It was a scam, and $75,000 had gotten stolen out of his account and wired down to a different account, and then it got wired to an offshore account in China. Okay. He called me. I ended up bringing in the Secret Service, a friend of mine from Secret Service, to help him on the case. Well, anyways, make a long story short, Secret Service agent tracked the money down to, went to a Bank of India and a Bank of China, and he had it all tracked down. The investigator did a tremendous job tracking where the money went, okay? Well, he got to the point where he got a cease and desist letter from the Bank of China, from out of New York City, told him you're violating a federal treaty, because he had served some search warrants on, you're violating a federal treaty, and to back off. Well, he ended up taking it to an expert in Washington, and you know what she told him? Back off. Back off. Cease and desist. There's these different international treaties that protect these offshore banks. And basically what it was explained to my buddy who explained this to me, this was incredible. On a daily basis, billions of dollars are transferred around overseas, okay? Money is transferred and wired around on a daily, but internationally, where it's converted and sent around. Well, bottom line is, you are not going to clog this machine, this daily machine, with your stopping and going and violating this international treaty that's signed, and your $75,000 that got ripped off. Oh well. The woman in Washington told my friend a story where another man had been ripped off $25 million out of his account. They tracked it down and went once again to this Bank of China. It got zapped overseas. Well, they're able to recover it and get the guy's money back for him, okay? He was legitimately ripped off. Do you know what the woman told the Secret Service agent? After the hell that she paid to do this, if she had to do it over again, she would not have gotten involved, which is incredible how intricate these scams are, where the money, you see it way more than I do, where it's wired here to here to here, and a lot of stuff is in state, but a lot of stuff goes overseas, correct?
Sure.
And what our residents, I would like our residents to understand, is when we have people in Shelby Township that are ripped off here and the money is wired out of state, there's not a lot we can do, okay? Our federal partners, they have a threshold. Charles, I think I know the number. Do you have your number, what is up to date with when they'll get involved?
Yeah, it depends. I've had a few get involved because I pulled financial information from the actual people who are doing it.
Okay.
And when I can prove it's only $2,200 from our resident,
Okay.
but they're getting $2,200 deposits a
Gotcha.
day, and it builds up to that point. I would hazard a guess, depending on the agency, it's $500,000.
Yes.
Maybe more.
That's the number I've been told by multiple sources, that they won't get involved unless it's $500,000 because there's so much of this stuff. It's so rampant, the fraud going on. So we can't stress to you enough to protect yourself, sign into your accounts each day, try to get that American Express card. And this is not American Express commercial here, but they'll give you an alert every time that card is used for anything. It'll text you and let you know, which I think is an incredible service. Charles, so that's all the stuff that I know about, okay? You know a lot more intricate details. Tell us about another scam going on right now for our residents to be aware of.
All right, a big one that we're getting lately is the romance scam. A lot of times it involves Facebook and Instagram and those kinds of social media programs where maybe somebody is what they do is they'll basically look at a profile and they'll say, hey, this person looks kind of maybe a little lonely, or maybe their personal life is not in the best spot, and they target that. And they develop these online emotional relationships, and oftentimes they claim to be somebody an American overseas who's stuck in the Sudan or in Nigeria or India or in Asia, places like that, or they're going through a financial issue, they're soldiers and things like that, and basically dupe these people through prepaid cards and money transfers to transferring money all over the nation, which then gets, like I say, normally turned into either transfers into offshore accounts or turned into Bitcoin, which at that point it basically just goes up and gets pulled down wherever else, by the recipient, normally overseas. And it's amazing that it works, but at the same time, when you go back through and you look at the messages and the communication back and forth, and it's just, these people devote an immense amount of time to frauding, just duping these people into this kind of, feeling like they're in this relationship, and then they feel safe enough to give this money over. And oftentimes when this is the person, we'll get a report and they'll say, well, this is the person it is. Well, there's no such person by that name in Nevada. They don't exist. Matter of fact, if you look closer on Facebook, you'll find 5 or 6 other profiles where these people have, a small number of Facebook friends, and it's oftentimes they're running a variety of scams. And a lot of times what happens is the money is wired to other people who are victims of a scam as repayment to keep them on the hook a little bit longer. Send me 20 grand. Oh, here's 2 grand back for you. Can you send me another 5 kind of thing? And it keeps going and going and going. And oftentimes, the people that, look like, yeah, I sent the message to Jim Smith in Indianapolis. Well, Jim Smith in Indianapolis is either a fraudulent name, he's somebody who went in with a fake ID and created a bad bank account using that fake ID, or he's another victim who's just receiving payment. Sometimes they'll get back in contact with them and claim to be a member of a law enforcement agency from the country of this person is in, and say, look, we'll wire you a little bit of money, but we've got to, there's taxes involved, we have to get you your money, and you got to pay a deposit and things like that, and they'll string them along that way. So that's a big one. I mean, never, ever, ever wire any money or send any prepaid cards or give anybody these prepaid card numbers that you don't know, that you've never met or never seen in person, or even never talked to on the phone. It's all oftentimes a lot of internet communications back and forth.
I don't want to ruffle feathers of some of our residents, but the bottom line is, if you don't know this person, they're not your friend, okay? If you don't know them intimately, or we could sit and reach out and touch them, these relationships that people have on the internet, it's messed up. It's a
Right.
very dicey situation, and like Charles said, do not give money to people you don't know face to face. Actually, to be honest with you, my mother always told me don't give any money to anybody.
Sure.
Okay, don't lend money to anybody unless it's immediate family and you know you're going to get it back. Or the other one is, you lend it, you know, and you're not going to get it back. You know what I mean? Does that make sense
Right,
or not?
yeah, it's-
you know,
if it's
like
gone, it's
written
gone.
off. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gone. Here, I'll lend you. You're my brother, my sister. If I don't get it back, oh well, I've kind of written it off.
Yeah.
But money you ever expected getting back. But another one that I know we had recently, where a woman had been giving a man thousands and thousands of dollars. They're in a dating relationship. You hear this all the time, okay? You can't pick up any kind of newspaper and read about some female being swindled by some male hustler. You see it on the 2020s, and I'm sure you've seen it on different stuff. You know, this is probably my own personal feelings here, but women should not be giving men money, okay? Unless it's their spouse, okay, and you know what I mean, they have children together or something. But you're in a dating relationship and a man's trying to hustle the woman for money. Something's wrong here. Let's just talk about the nature of things. Ron, what is your take on that? Are you in agreement or not?
Oh, very much so. I mean,
Okay.
you got to be smart, got to be vigilant, and pay attention.
Yeah, the woman was up at the counter making a report. She had been ripped off by this guy for thousands and thousands of dollars, and where he's leading her along, stringing her along, and when men sugar daddies are giving their young girlfriends money, that's different. Okay, they're doing it by choice. Okay, they're older, they're more mature, they understand. But these guys come in and they're not sugar daddies, and a lot of them are con artists, and they con these women to giving them money. It's kind of sad, and give advice to everybody out there not to give your money away. Period.
Right.
So we talked about a lot of different things today on the show. We've talked about signing into your accounts, not giving your information out to anybody, different IRS, different scams, emails, etc. Any closing remarks, Charles, that we haven't touched on for our residents?
Generally, like you say, be vigilant, check your accounts, and definitely, don't give out any information over the phone. If a person claims to be from your credit card company, hang up, look at the back of your credit card and call that number. And if you say, hey, I got a number from the credit card company, I've had to do this myself. Hey, I got a call that they claim to be from Chase, and did somebody try and contact me? And then you've got to go through this litany of security questions where they're asking you questions about your employment history and things like that. When you've called that number on the back, and then you get through all those checks, and then they say, yeah, somebody did call you just to confirm that you spent this money,
Yes.
or you made this charge and it is in fact you. I said, yeah, that was me, great, perfect. But I'm not going to sit there when somebody cold calls me and I don't recognize the number and say, yeah, tell me your name, tell me your date of birth. No, I'm not doing that. I don't care if you are from Chase. I will call you back, is my basic feeling on that.
Okay. Charles, thank you for your expertise. Thank you for your skills and knowledge and letting everyone know. I appreciate it. Ron, thanks for telling your story also. As to our residents, if you need any information whatsoever, please feel free to give us a call at the police department. We'll walk you through any situation and help you. You've been watching Straight Talk. We'll see you next month. Thank you.